Hello everyone and welcome to Red Dragon Open Beta. Yep, the beta is out, it's being released today. To access this, you have to pre-order the game, Red Dragon, which actually you can do with a discount of 25% of the price of the game. So it's actually a pretty nice deal, if you ask me. Now, the first thing I'm going to do in the Open Beta is to show you something that a lot of you guys wanted to see in the closed beta, which were the naval assets, the naval section of the armory and the decks. Now, I did choose not to make any video about the naval forces before because it was pretty obvious that some changes would have to happen to them before release. And being this an open beta, probably more changes will happen before release. But for the most part, the ships have changed a lot in many ways, and most of them will probably be very close to what they are right now. So let's take a look at the naval assets in Wargame Airline Battle. And to do that, we are going to do it as if we were creating a deck. So you can see exactly what's available for you while you are creating a deck. Now, let's say that we are going to make a Blue Force US deck with no special type or era because of course it's just an instance. Let's call it N. Great. And let's go directly to the naval section. Now the first thing you are going to notice is that before in the closed beta you had up to 9 spots for the naval units, and they didn't cost anything, and they still don't cost anything. Right now, if you don't pick the naval specialization, you only have up to 6 spots open, which is the first change. You have 3 less cards unless you go for a naval deck, which of course has some specializations. We're going to see that later on in the video. But first, let's take a look at what you can choose as a United States for your naval section. The first thing you will have to know is that there are 3 different kinds of ships. Now, let's select them. You have coastal support, command, escort, supply, but even more, they come in 3 different, let's say, flavors. Oh, hold on a second. There you go. Which are coastal, deep sea, and riverine. Now, the only ships that can enter inland channels or rivers are the riverine units. Of course, they are the smaller ones. Coastal units are kind of small ships with limited usefulness, but they are able to support inland troops much easier than deep sea units, of course, because they are deep sea. These are the biggest ones. Now let's see exactly how and what do we have open for choosing in a Blue Force deck. Because this is, if you were with a Japanese deck, you will have access to exactly the same units except for the land ones. The land ones will appear here in the armory instead of in the water. This will come in barges, so you can launch amphibious assaults. Whatever land unit you put in this area is going to be an amphibious unit, okay? The rest are ships, planes, and those are the ones we are going to take a look at. The first one for the Blue Force is the Fremantle. The Fremantle is a 100 cost, has a heavy cannon, well, more or less, it's 40 millimeters autocannon, has a dual M2 Browning machine gun, and has a support mortar. But the biggest thing here is that it's a command unit. This thing can control and own naval zones. All right. You can see down here the different statistics. Of course, naval units as well have optics. They have a speed measured in knots. They also have a stealth, and some of them even have ECM. You are going to see that. And here you can see this is a coastal unit, so you can go really close to the coast. Next is the Hatsuyuki, which is a Japanese, but actually as you can see, you can select it with an US deck. It's a destroyer. It is 300 points. This is a big change because before this was, I think, 200. It has a 76 millimeter autocannon, has 8 harpoons, anti-ship missiles, and 6 Sparrow AA missiles. It's a deep sea unit. It's also a command unit, so this can capture zones. And well, it has the armor. In the stats you can see pretty much here. And as you can see, this one has an ECM rating, which is detracted from the missiles that are shot at this ship. The sea line is the big daddy of the Blue Force units. It's the Congo. This is a Japanese version of the early Burg destroyer, the American one, with an Aegis anti-aircraft system. Has a 127 millimeter 5-inch autocannon. Has 8 harpoons and 96 standard missiles, which are extremely good for air defense. And this ship is mostly focused on air defense with a pretty strong anti-ship suit, but the harpoon is not the best anti-ship missile in the game by far. 40% ECM, a lot of hit points, exceptional optics, very good close-in weapon system, which is another change, by the way. Before, the closing weapon systems came up here. Right now they are at different stat, which, yeah, you can see here. These are the Vulcans, the 30 millimeter. The Vulcan is a 20 millimeter, but they are closing weapon system up to 35 millimeters, I think. Gatling guns, you can see it here. This is a closing weapon system. This is a Vulcan, a Phalanx, actually. So yeah, this is the Congo, 450 points. As you can see, this one is not cheap. Before the patch, this was 250. You can see it's a very big scale up in price. Next is the Lafayette, which is a destroyer. You can see it's a very plain looking destroyer. It has a 100 millimeter autocannon. Has 8 exocet missiles, anti-ship missiles, and Crotals for air defense, up to 24 missiles. 60% ECM, as you can see. Well, this is actually a very modern French destroyer, which uses stealth technology to decrease the radar cross section, and this is here. 150 points of strength, exceptional optics. Well, pretty competent unit. Also, command unit as well. Next in line is the Oliver Hazard Perry, which is a frigate, 160 points, 16 harpoon missiles. This is a very strong anti-surface unit, but only 16 standard 1 missiles, which are not as good as the standard 2 in the Congos. It's also a command unit, 30% ECM, deep sea unit. Well, a pretty big frigate, which is nowhere near the cost of a Congo, but still is pretty effective. Next, we have the Type 21. This is a British frigate, actually. I think this was the one that was called the Porsche of the seas, because it was so fast and had such a sterling performance in speed and acceleration. Command unit as well, deep sea unit. Big Smart 8, 114 millimeter autocannon, 4 Exocet missiles, and 32 Seacat, very close range, but pretty accurate air defense missiles. As you can see, this one doesn't have any ECM rating. Okay. Next, the planes we are going to see later, and the choppers. The Bike Coup. This one you saw me actually using in the last video I posted of the Red Dragon closed beta. And as you can see, it has a 66 millimeter autocannon, dual Brownings machine guns, and 12 standard 1 AA missiles. This is a coastal unit which can come pretty close to the coast. ECM of 10%, good optics, and yeah, this is a very light combatant, but with a pretty strong for its size anti-aircraft complement. Next is the Cham Su Ri. which is a coastal unit with a Bofors 40mm autocannon, Sea Vulcan closing weapon system, which are these things here, which are pretty funny looking if you ask me, and a couple of Brownings. These, well, are designed to be air defense units to protect other coastal units. It's a coastal ship with an ECM of 20%. Next is the Dawn High. The Dawn High has a 76 millimeter autocannon, dual 30mm autocannons, and dual Bofors 40mm autocannon as well. This is a pretty strong cannon armored ship. Of course, the 30mm is pretty strong against helicopters and planes. This is another air defense ship with very strong ECM of 40%. More. Don't worry about the planes. We are going to look at them. LCU 1610. This is just a supply ship. It carries 10,000 liters of supplies and is used to supply other units, so other ships and even ground units if they fall within the range of this ship. As you can see, it's rivering, so this thing can actually go up rivers and be used to reload ground units. So it's a pretty useful. Actually, it's pretty much indispensable. You have to have one of these things if you have ships in your deck. More ships. The Monitor 105, which is pretty much barge with a 105 howitzer and a couple of 20mm for local defense. Monitor Sipo, which is pretty much the same, but adding a couple of Brownings and a napalm launcher with a range of 1,550 meters. Then we have the Pegasus. The Pegasus is a coastal unit, a very fast one, at 38 knots, with a gun and 8 harpoon missiles, but no air defense whatsoever. So this is kind of a light unit to flank and to try to strike the enemy from long range with the harpoons. But if anything comes close to it, it's going to kill it. Also, only 60 points of strength is very easy to kill. Then the Pohang. This one is not actually listed here. This actually has a closed weapon system, ECM of 20%, harpoons, and a cannon. It's a coastal unit. This you also saw me using in my last Red Dragon video. Then we have the Rivering CB, which is pretty much a patrol boat with Hellfires, which is a very interesting choice, Brownings, and a grenade launcher. Very small, not really hard to kill, but can surprise sometimes, believe me. And yeah, those are the ships that you have available for the Blue Force. Now let's take a look at the planes. Let's helicopter antiship. No, and aircraft antiship. There you go. First we have the A6E Tram Intruder, which is a bomber with 4 harpoon missiles. So you can pretty much watch it. Next, an attack helicopter. The Super Puma with a couple of exocets. Pretty strong anti-ship missiles with a 70% chance to hit. It's really high. Then the AS, is a Eurocopter Panther. Has 4 AS-1SS STT, oh my gosh, that name, anti-ship missiles. Not that big of a range, but very high accuracy. Then we have the Canadian Hornet with a Vulcan, 2 Sidewinder M's, and 4 harpoons. Very strong ECM, by the way. This is a pretty nice anti-ship unit. Then we have the Starfighter. Couple of cormorants. This is actually a German starfighter, and the Vulcan. Yep. And also another German another German plane, sorry, the Tornado MFG, with 4 cormorants, 2 Sidewinder Ls, and a Mauser 27mm autocannon. Also, remember that you can watch the ECM stats, the speed stats down here, and are very important for each one of the planes, of course. Next in line we have the F-16A. I think this one is maybe Norwegian because of the penguins. I don't know. The thing is, it has penguin antiship missiles, has Sidewinder Ls, and a Vulcan. Then we have the Super Hornet with 4 harpoons, 4 Sidewinder Ms, and the Vulcan. Pretty costly, but a hell of a unit. really powerful. Then we have the Aardvark, the F-111G, with just 4 harpoons. The Lynx AH-S2 with 2 Sea Skuas antiship missiles. 4 Sea Skuas antiship missiles. The Seahawk with 2 penguins only. Just, I thought it was 4 because I was looking at this and I was expecting another 2 here. Sorry. The Super Etendard with just 1 exoset, but it's very cheap. So kind of one thing for the other. The funny thing is that I can't see the missile in this model, but the 3D models are still a work in progress, so no big deal with that. And finally, the Tornado GR1B. 2 Sea Eagles, 2 Sidewinder Ls, Mauser 27mm, this one is British, of course. And those are the air assets. And that's the naval section for the Blue Force. That's what you can get if you go for a Blue Force deck. And remember, these units you just saw are going to be always available, no matter if you are going with the Americans, the British, the Koreans, the South Koreans, of course, the Japanese, the Germans, whatever. Those things are always the same. The things that change in the naval section are the amphibious infantry units. Well, infantry and tank units, whatever is amphibious, then that depends on the nation you have. Now let's take a look at a Redford one. And let's say we go with Czechoslovakia. Which of course shouldn't have a lot of naval forces, isn't it? But still, with the Czechs, you can go for naval units. Now let's do exactly the same. Let's unselect this and select helicopter antiship, aircraft antiship, and coastal ships. Well, coastal support, escort, supply, etc. Those are the common units that you are going to have in all the decks. The first is the Najin, which is a common unit. Deep Sea is a frigate with a 100mm autocannon, 2 Termite antiship missiles, and a couple of 57 autocannons. Not really the strongest unit around, but even so, it's still a common unit. And well, it's pretty cheap at 150. Next, the Sobremeni, which is one of the big units for the Red Force. You will notice that this one is this and the Udaloid are the most expensive ships, and for a good reason. First, they have a couple of 130mm naval cannons, 8 Mosquito missiles, and these missiles are pretty huge. Now, first of all, they have an immense range of 9,450 meters. If you saw the other section of the Blue Force, you will see that these missiles are the longest ranges of all. But they are also the fastest of them all. These missiles are actually supersonic, and they have a huge accuracy. So you're going to start seeing why 500 points for this, right? And as for air defenses, up to 48, sorry, um, anti-aircraft missiles. I'm not going to try to even bother naming this. 20% ECM, 250 points, exceptional optics, very good closing weapon systems. Well, this is a brutal unit. Brutal, really. Next in line comes the Type 051 Lura, which is a Chinese frigate. Dual 130mm guns, high Ying 1J antiship missiles. You can see the range is nowhere close to what the Submarine had, and they are also slower missiles. Of course, let's say the cost is not the same. It's still a deep ship unit with command attribute, and has also a dual 37mm anti-aircraft guns. No ECM, medium sea closing weapon systems. Well, a pretty nice cheap unit that can be effective. Next is the Type 053 HT Yanyu 3. A couple of, well, dual 100mm cannons here. 8 Yingyi 82 missiles with a pretty hefty range. And HQ7, these are virtually Crotals, French Crotals, radar AA missiles, and has 32 of them. 20% ECM, and very good closing weapon systems. A pretty strong unit for its cost. It's also a common unit, by the way. You will notice that almost every deep sea unit is also a common unit. So, yep. Next is the Yudaloi 2, the other big boy of the Red forces. 500 points, command unit, dual 130mm cannons, 8 muskets, and 64 AA missiles. However, you will see that the range is nowhere close to the Submarine. However, it has a much stronger ECM, much stronger closing weapon systems. So it's kind of balance. It's also faster, by the way. So you have to choose what you want to go with. This one doesn't have the strongest air defenses ever, but it's faster and has better ECM. So yeah, still this thing is extremely strong, and of course the cost reflects it. Let's see more ships before we walk into planes. The Comar is a very tiny riverine unit with anti-ship missiles, 2 termites, and well, some very close-in 25mm autocannons. Very smallish, very fast. Then we have the Musket 205, which is yet another fast unit with just termite anti-ship missiles. This is one of the a very fast light combatant and has absolutely no defense whatsoever. It's just the anti-ship missiles. Then we have the Muna, which is the supply ship for the Red Force, which has 15,000 liters instead of the 10k that the Blue Force gets. Then we have the Nanuska 3, which is a pretty nice light corvette with a 76mm gun, 6 Malakit anti-ship missiles, and 40 OSA AA missiles. For a coastal ship, this is actually a very good and well-rounded unit. It also has medium closing weapon systems and even a little bit of ECM. So this is actually a pretty nice unit. Then we have the Santu, which is a very small boat, riverine, with recoilless rifle guns and 37mm autocannons. Moving on, the Schmel, 76mm guns, a couple of 35mm autocannons, and rocket launchers. Yep. Has 140mm rocket launchers. Of course, another riverine unit. It's just for support mostly. Then you have the Tarantula, another corvette. This is another. Let's compare it with the Nanuska because this is a very interesting comparison. It was also in real life. These are two series of anti-ship corvettes that were very spread in the Cold Era War. Now you will notice that it still has AA missiles, but they are the Strelas, not the OSAs. So the range is much lower, the accuracy is pretty much crap. However, it has Mosquito missiles, and this is pretty huge. This is pretty huge. Also 35 knots of speed. This is a very fast hitter. And yeah, other than that, I mean, it's pretty vulnerable. While the Nanos Captain 3 can defend himself much better because the OSAS, but this one has mosquitoes. And yeah, those things hard, really. And they are extremely fast. You can really understand how strong these missiles are until you see them in action. Really powerful missiles. Now, the Type 037, the Chinese frigate, with dual autocannons of 37 millimeters and Jinji 82 anti-ship missiles. It's a coastal unit, which is a pretty nice all-round one because it has good closing weapon systems and pretty decent ECM of 30%. Now we move to the Type 62 Shanghai, which has just machine guns, well, cannons, autocannons all around. It's a river unit to support river operations. And yeah, those are the ships that you have available when you are playing a Red Force deck. Now let's take a look at the aircraft and the helicopters that you will be able to access. The A5 Nanshan with G1 missiles and a couple of infrared ones. No ECM, by the way. So yeah, the KA-27 PLP with two KH-31A anti-ship missiles. The MiG-29K, a really strong anti-ship plane with 30mm autocannon, 4 KH-31A anti-ship missiles, and 4 R-73 Pimpel air missiles, which are extremely good. Of course, they are air, so they don't have a huge range, but still, this is a pretty nice all-around plane. Then we have the Q5B, sorry, with a YJ-8 anti-ship missile and an autocannon. And then we have the GH-7 Feibad, which has two anti-ship missiles, 4 AA missiles, air missiles, and an autocannon. And a 40% ECM, which is nothing to sneeze about, by the way. SU-27K, just one, but it's still a musket. One musket, 6 medium range fire and forget AA missiles, and an autocannon. This is actually an A superiority fighter with an anti-ship missile that you can use if you want, but yeah, this and 50% ECM. This is a really strong plane. Of course, it has the hearts that it has no air missiles, but who the hell cares? I mean, fire and forget missiles. Well, yeah. Then we have the Super Pluma, the Chinese version with two exocets, very similar to the Blue Force One, and the Zeta 9C, which is the Chinese licensed version of the Eurocopter with two anti-ship missiles. And yeah, those are the units you will have available when you go for the naval section of your decks. Of course, again, you will have available for those units that have amphibious transport, you will also have them available to use in amphibious operations. So Motostrelsky in naval in amphibious transports, you can pick them, and etc. 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 Of course, these are checks because these decade tools was Czech. If it was Soviet, here there will be Soviet units. Anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed. I hope you found this interesting. Keep on the watch because very soon you are going to start watching gameplay of the open beta of Red Dragon. I already have a couple games on the can, and I only have to find time to upload them. My upload speed is so crap. Anyway, guys, hope you had fun. Hope you found this interesting again. And as always, thank you very much for watching and see you later.